give a talk as a number 3 speaker, and the last one will be on remote Ana Navio from Spain. And with that, I just pass the moderator to my co-chairman, Fatima Lidef.
Okay, good morning, everyone. It's interesting to be speaking to a room where there are so few people. Most of them are probably at the beach enjoying the sunshine. But you guys know the importance of disaster management, and that's what we are going to cover this morning. The first speaker is Dr. Muhammad Alwi Abdul Rahman. He is adjunct professor of emergency medicine and trauma at the Masa University and the University Kebangsaan Malaysia, and they're all in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. He's also the chairman of the Malaysian Red Crescent Society. He leads Malaysia in their humanitarian response, and he's also the main director of TopCom, which is a disaster response program which has been running for many years, and we just did a workshop in Istanbul. Alwi is going to talk to us this morning about, are we ready for long-term disaster preparedness? Alwi, please.
Wow. It's very difficult from here for me to say anything, but I'm just, give me a minute, I'm going to open. Do we get it here? Slides? Oh, lovely. Okay. Thank you, Prof. Fatima, Prof. Salvatore, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming to this morning. First of all, I'd like to thank Professor Basa and his team for inviting us here, and of course, WASEM through Dr. Sagar. We have been traveling all over the world. Anyway, we are talking about long-term disaster preparedness, and I have no conflict of interest. I must thank yesterday, 2 days ago, we were conducting training at in Istanbul, the Medianet Hospital. Thank you to Dr. Basa and the team for giving us the opportunity to train your residents and medical students. Thank you to Prof. Fatima too. Long-term disaster, it's always headache for the strategists. The strategist has to think about how to do contingency planning, the forward planning. We always have problem in forward planning because all plan that we have is just a paper syndrome. And we have learned through COVID-19, through the current crisis, civil conflict, civil military conflict in many of the countries all over the world. And of course, based on my experience and the experience of Southeast Asia, we have responded to Southeast Asia disaster, and 50% of all disasters in the world, it is basically in Asia, and which is Thailand, which is Indonesia, Malaysia, and Myanmar. The recent was in Myanmar, where we sent a team. I was supposed to be in Myanmar, but unfortunately, I sent a team because we are committed to EPAD in Istanbul and Antalya. Now, the WHO always looking at how to make changes, how to create leaders in understanding, formulating new SOPs, new innovation, but with great difficulties. We have issues related to money, finance, and now more so, we are having limitations of budget. Again, we have to invest on risk assessment, planning, resilience, and capacity building. Now, capacity building is cost, is money, is budget. It is the participations of global nation in supporting each other in terms of resources, in terms of training. And we know we are lacking, we are running short of it. And one of the strategies for the long-term disaster planning is continuously assessing the risk assessment from country to country. And risk assessment itself needs a lot of planning, a lot of strategies, a lot of leaders contributing, and such as EPAD, such as WASEM. And these global participations, teamwork, understanding, sharing of knowledge, it building up our own capacity in respective country. And planning is not easy because it is always diverse and it is always moving fast, and we have to look at the plans from time to time. We have WHO, we have UNDP, you have UNHCR, there are so many. Having said that, there is a platform for all have to work together, especially example like EMTs, EMT 1, 2, 3, that is where the WHO committed in capacity building. Hospital is the important infrastructure, both in pre-hospital care and the hospital response. The hospital, it is always has to be on toes to respond to any disaster within the national or within the nation as well as international participation, like what is happening in Myanmar and some of the Middle East. Resilience is always dynamic, and resilience is always how to bounce back. Yeah, and we have to look at the key challenges. The key challenges is resource. The need is more than the resources available. No nations can respond to a disaster and have a successful outcomes. It is very difficult. That's why, as Malaysia is part of the ASEAN summit leaders for this year, we have a lot of cooperations and collaborations between the 11 partners of Asia, ASEAN. And ASEAN is having a meeting now. We are looking, one of the things is the how we're going to commit and respond to a disaster as a whole. And of course, there is always a financial constraints as well as a lot of limitations. Now, the WHO framework looking at durability. Durability, it is continuous commitment, participation, interagency cooperation, and we have to keep the community in place. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we know the hospital is the center point of all the activities and response. And we learn from the COVID-19 that the hospitals always must have developed the continuous surge capacity, space, staff, system, supply, which is not easy because all that needs good planning, and supply chain failures always gives us a lot of difficulties. And of course, do not forget, in the long-term preparedness for any disaster, it is the mental health care resilience and to bounce back. And without the economy and social and political support, all this is impossible. COVID-19, we have the surge capacity at ICU as well as the emergency emergency department. There is a delay in treatment, so that adds to your pre-morbidity mortality. And of course, the 60% of the supply chain is related to personal protective equipment. Vaccine, there is a lot of contradictions and a lot of issues related to vaccine too. And supply chain is also how to get a glove, how to get your mask, as well as the other consumables is very difficult. So disruptions will be there. Okay, is it moving? The slides. Okay, the slides jam now. Okay. There is, of course, mental health care, as I said. There is always a burnout syndrome. There is always a post-traumatic stress disorder and suicidal risk. Malaysia, my emergency department, we have a case where there was a car that came to emergency department with so many people waiting outside to get treatment, and they want to gate crash using the car. as a weapon. So we had a lot of mental health care issues, and we have to increase the security of our emergency department as well as lockdown. So COVID-19 taught us about pandemic's nightmare. And as emergency physicians, we can't even look just for the emergency medical training. We also have to look at the outside of the scope of supporting the support service, the security, the management, as well as the rest of the people involved. And of course, there is a lack of coordination, and the continuous support from the government is essential in making sure that we reach the objective of the mass casualty incident management or the pandemic itself. Stockpiling as well as the healthcare resilience to come back to job is a very important thing. If you don't give enough PPE, if you don't train them in how to wear the PPE, they will never come to work during any pandemic. So this is the lesson learned. So let us go back to the lesson learned of 3 particular disasters that I personally brought a team as a lead team for Malaysia in Southeast Asia, Middle East and Africa. So in lesson learned 1 is the 2004 Andaman, and that was almost 9.2 to 9.3. As I speak, Indonesia still have a lot of disasters related to tsunami, earthquake, volcanoes, as well as civil conflict from time to time. Thank God Malaysia is supporting them as part of the ASEAN Humanitarian Assistance Team, AHA. So that has caused a lot of catastrophic, a lot of migrations, a lot of refugees, particularly Indonesia going to another country during that time. Of course, they have a lot of other issues. There's a destruction to healthcare facilities. I have seen personally, I went to one hospital, there is no medical staff. Some of the relatives already dead, and the nurses, doctors, none there, and most of the equipment is destroyed. So, as an EMT team, level 2 or level 3, what are you going to do? How do you want to start a on-site medical treatment? So there's a lot of challenges for us. And we have to do, because our stay there is almost about 1 or 2 years with the long-term planning you have to develop and supply chain as well as to build up business continuity plan. Now we have a lot of communication coordination, and thank God we had UNDP and WHO at that time, at that particular time, everything was in place. Ladies and gentlemen, the future is going to be different. How many countries are ready to respond as a unified team in the current situation? Budget, planning, and limitation, regulations, governance. We have a lot of issues from 2025. So we need to overcome through a strategic alternative planning. So the lesson learned from tsunami is the how to increase the structural resilience. So the future hospital have to be designed, okay, to withstand. But can you fight back with nature? You know, when the earthquake is increasing from 9.4 to 10, of course the highest was 9.4, which is in Indonesian Sumatra, and strengthening human resource capacity. So we have to look at training, cross-training, which is what we did in Istanbul a few days ago with Prof. Fatima and the team and the rest of them, the Turkish Red Cross, and we developed give them the new hope for the students and as well as the residents. Now, looking at other thing is the robust supply chain. Supply chain is going to be affected. We have a lot of issues regarding tariff, and that applies everything. So now, if a country wants to import glove, which is Malaysia is an exporter of rubber glove, we're going to have a lot of crises when importing nations have to pay so much money. So this is quite challenging. Now, the lesson learn number 2 is Turkey earthquake, Turkey, Syria. Malaysia was among the team that sent the search and rescue team along with the forward assessment team. We sent about 3 different teams for the Gaziantep, Turkey experience, as well as the Syria earthquake. So we went to 2 countries, 2 different teams, and we have to do a lot of support and to bring back a business recovery plan within the capacity and capabilities of our actions. And of course, we know so many debts, and it costs a lot of money.
Okay.
And of course, they have immediate response challenges, overwhelming such capacity, and I must thank the Turkish Red Cross as well as the AFAD for supporting our ground team and helping us in a lot of geopolitical situations as well as supporting the hospital. There are challenges, of course, delays, coordination issues, which is everywhere, all over the world, and of course in the field hospital, which we learned from COVID to a cyclone in hurricane in Philippines to earthquake in New Zealand or here, we have challenges regarding to resource. Now the lesson learned through research is structural resilience. We need to build, the building code has to be in place so that we have a resilient-based infrastructure, including hospital, safe hospital. That's part of the Sendai framework for risk reduction. Emergency decentralization, because you need to have multiple center of emergency operation center as well as response and trauma hubs and training, and which is what we did and with our team. And this is our Turkish and Syria first responding, subsequently the search and rescue team that was ground zero, and we were doing everything possible. Now the third and the final one is a lesson learned from the Fukushima. Now Malaysia and Japan have a lot of collaboration and partnership. We have the Look East strategy policy right from the 70s and 80s until now. So we sent a team because a lot of Malaysian assets, Malaysian students, Malaysian people were there in Fukushima. So I was asked by the Malaysian government through the Ministry of Health and National Security Council to deploy a team and to go and support the public health in Japan as well as they bring back the Malaysian asset home safely without any contaminations. No, that's the issue. Are you trained to go to a country where there's a nuclear capacity, nuclear plant? Are you trained to have a PPE? Are you trained in decontamination process, coming back clear and clean? So this is the assets, and we have to educate our Malaysian assets there, how safe they are, because the fear factor is always an issue, and we knew that there's going to be problem with the EMS service, and we know there will be a delay in response and evacuation from the site to the hospital because of the contaminations on the ground as well as the food chain, and people have fear factor. Radiation is a fear factor. People don't want to drink, they don't want to eat because they are worried and they have little knowledge about radiation or radioactive awareness. So that is our challenges. And the collapse of the hospital. If your hospital is contaminated, and based on the half-life of anything, see, CCM takes about 30 years. CCM takes about 30 years for you to clean up. So this is going to be a graveyard. And some of the cities are not functioning in Japan. So we have to go along with the support from the Japanese public health to make sure in the safe zone. I must thank the Japanese government and the public health because they supported us and teaching us. Even Malaysia does not have a nuclear plant. We have nothing to. But our training, we are exposed of training for radioactive by the Japanese JICA, as well as we were trained by the UK and Americans. So that gives us a little confidence to go to ground. And business continuity plan to bring back to normality is a big issue. And we know that we need to work on the next day. And so goes to the Japanese public healthcare systems, the community, the people. So we have to make sure for early recovery of any disaster is community commitment, participations, and of course, the hospital must make sure that are functioning. Now the gaps, of course, when radiation is different from natural disaster or hurricane, or if you are landslide, it's a lot of difference because fear is the only thing that divides us between the natural disaster as well as chemical, biological, radiation, nuclear, and cross-training is very important. Now the part of the disaster preparedness, it is about robust staff training in C, B, R, and E. And this is the most important information for all the emergency department as the front line of any hospital. If an emergency department collapse, the whole hospital will collapse. particularly for unknown disasters. So we are continuously has to make sure that we learn, and then we have to be resilient, rebound, and as well understanding to get prepared for any kind of disaster as part of all hazard approach. We cannot assume it is a natural disaster. If a cyclone hits, say, in Tacloban, Tacloban, I was there in Philippines, there's a lot of industrial, chemical exposed, so a lot of contamination. So you have to be ready. So ladies and gentlemen, this is our tsunami and nuclear plant crisis Japan. We send a team. I need to brief. Of course, the PPE is a lower end, and time, distance, and shields save you. So you have to follow closely the advice from the Japanese public health, and we have to do what we have to do according to our training. And part of the training is the hazmat materials that we in Malaysia, I must thank to the Japanese, American, British, that we are part of continuous sustainable training that we had through Commonwealth support as well as the ASEAN humanitarian assistance support. We learn the hospital defense in radioactive emergencies. What are you going to do? Malaysia also a part of a nation that has to be prepared for all kind of disaster. Moving forward, short term, long term, we have to look about how to enhance early warning systems, conduct regular audits, and how to improve. Of course, build resilience, capacity building, global regional partnership, and this is where the EPAD, WASEM, it is adjoint. It gives us a lot of resilience and strength in improving ourselves, such as this platform, so that we can meet a lot of experts, subject matter experts, and we can exchange views and opinions. And of course, who is responsible for risk reduction and changes? Of course, the commitment from the government, the understanding of the healthcare institution through training, and the community resilience. Part of the other trainings that we do is the helicopter emergency service, and we have, for rapid deployment, we have to train along the civil military. And this is a TOPCOM, we continuous training, and Syria, Turkey. And ladies and gentlemen, the time is up. I have about extra 1 or 2 minutes. So disaster preparedness is not just a professional responsibility, it's a moral obligation to protect lives and communities through evidence-based planning, lesson learned, sharing, and of course, global partnership. With that, thank you very much for your time, and this is my reference. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this really comprehensive presentation. At the end of the session, we'll have the discussion. Now it's a pleasure for me to introduce the next speaker. The next speaker is Antoine Hassi from Lebanon. He's going to talk about conflict medicine and mass casualty management, lessons learned from Lebanon. Meantime, he's going to prepare for the talk. Let me give a little bit of a brief introduction, Professor Antoine Hassi. I know him since more than 20 years, and I can consider him the founder of emergency medicine because he had so much interest from the beginning in academic field, and also from the beginning was internationally recognized as expert in organizing emergency department. I got the honor to visit him in Beirut, and I was really impressed at how much he's doing in this sense. But what is important also, he founded a journal, Mediterranean Emergency Medicine Journal, that has been really probably an opportunity for everyone to contribute. And lastly, I think it's important that he's going to now to manage the Mediterranean Emergency Medicine Congress. Next one will be in Budapest next August. And I think there will be an opportunity for all of us to meet again. Thanks, Dr. Hassi. Thank you, Antoine.
Thank you, Salvatore. Professor Fatima, thank you for having me. Thank you, EPAT, for again welcoming me to your Congress. It's been almost 30 years that I've been coming to Turkey, and I'm very proud of what I've seen and what I witnessed. I want to thank WASEM also for hosting us and supporting us to really get to know each other and work together. I really am humbled by your words. I'm just an activist like every one of you, and I've done my share, whether through the work with the American Academy or my establishment of the emergency medicine first academic department and first residency program, now ACGME, internationally accredited program in the American University of Beirut. I'm talking today about mass casualty management, and I'm going to try, if we have enough time, and I thank you, the organizers, for giving me 40 minutes. I'll do my best to cover what I think had, prior to this, been anecdotal experiences mentioned here and there. The real organized only effort that I've seen in mass casualty management in the emergency department has been published by the WHO Academy in 2023, late 2023, and has been taught across the world in a few countries, not too many. Many of you may not have heard about this. WHO Academy published in 2023 and started teaching 2024 a course on mass casualty management with principles, written actually by leaders from the ICRC who I know are experienced and qualified, namely a Greek, Chris Gianco, and who basically had a lot of experience in war zones and conflict medicine. Mass casualty management is no easy task, because mass casualty can happen from different reasons, from different external or internal disasters. I'm going to try to discover some of it and focus on the blast 2020 of the Beirut port with ammonium nitrate, and I'm going to talk also about, if I have, the pager attack that we had in the recent 1 year of war with Israel in Lebanon. As president of the Lebanese Society, I was appointed by His Excellency the Minister of Health in Lebanon to represent all physicians, not only emergency physicians, on the FIOC, which is the central command structure which trained 120 hospitals and acute care facilities that responded to the war and bombings that happened in the last 1 year. This gave me the experience to really also analyze what was going on in the field and to start talking the same language when it comes to mass casualty management. Today, I hope that the lessons that I'm going to present will be a good ground, which we've published, by the way, in the journal you mentioned, lessons that we can start all thinking of whenever we're dealing in mass casualty management. These are promoted and resemble the WHO. They complement the WHO recommendations, and I'm going to get into this in a moment. These experiences are things we really gained out of 20 years in Lebanon of organized emergency medicine. Prior to this, we've had wars and conflicts for 50 years. But like many other countries, people come and go, they rotate 1 year, 2 months, 3 months, 2 years, and they leave to become plastic surgeons, ENTs, and they no longer are the frontliners. And as you all know, COVID has taught us we're not only the frontliners, but the last liners. We basically are pivotal, like Dr. Ali was just mentioning. Without us, the institution will crash. So mass casualty management is definitely resting upon our shoulders. And we need to know this and to make it a discipline that we dissipate everybody. So only in the last 20 years, we've been able to see in chaos what are the common themes and to try to actually start promoting certain principles which are actually uniform and universal to all the world. This is August 4, 2020. This is the Beirut port after it blew. You can see here on the right, where there is a circle, the crater created by the blast of 2,000 tons of ammonium nitrate. And AUB is 3 kilometers away on the far left, 3 kilometers away. That's the port, that's AUB, and the downtown area. This is the silo of grain, and that's the blow up and the wave that came after it. There was a fire, and then boom. As you can tell from the broken watch, it was at 6:07. This is what you saw in buildings across Beirut. These are the kind of injuries we were seeing if people were not shattered into pieces. This was before on the left. Look at after, you can see the devastation from the blast. These were the grain. This is our national grain xylo. Look how it was hollowed out and took a big part of the blast. People all over Beirut were injured and killed. You can see all red dots are people dead. We had more than 7,000 casualties, 200,000 displaced, and 250 to 260 dead. Some pictures that show you the kind of response that occurred within half an hour of the injury, of the blast. Just a few pictures to give you a bit of scope. So what are the lessons? I'm going to go through them the best I can. Lesson number one, that no one can know when it will hit you. We schedule drills and get phone calls, do you really need me? Okay, we get those across the country, but mass casualty incident will punch you in the face when you least expect it. And suddenly your emergency department will turn into like this, and you'll try to figure out, and your entrance will look like this, and you're gonna start to try to figure out how you can fix this, and how can you function and be organized in the middle of this. This is our department. What you're trying to avoid is this. With all due respect to my colleague institution, we had lessons and training, they didn't, and this is what you got. People were inside the nursing station, they could not augment capacity. So this was a different blast, because despite all the war and bomb blasts, movie theater blasts, killing of the Hariri prime minister, the biggest bombs, 10 tons, 5 tons, a mosque, a church, you put a bomb, you blow it up, a movie theater. We had typically no more than 300 injuries. 200 dead, 50 dead, 100 dead, 200 wounded. This was the scale. This was the first time we had such a huge bomb go through. So the scale was unexpected. So whatever we had prepared based on our experience of 300 was no longer the case. Also, it was personal and created internal disaster. Many of us know people among these people that were killed. Children, elderly. This is our own department. Take a look. See it? It's personal. They didn't come in half an hour or 20 minutes later or 5. This was immediate. We had injuries in our own institution. 5 hospitals were devastated. 3 of them were evacuated. More than 30 healthcare workers were killed or injured. So people start coming in. Why are we important? Dr. Alwi, because we are where they identify the MCI. They start coming to us. We are where we activate. We are where we start the activation process. We are where the triage of these casualties occur and where we administer care with initiation of life-saving, stabilization interventions. We administer the care, and we are the ones to identify it's time to go home. So pivotal role, with all due respect to my colleagues, the surgeons and others, yes, they are very key in responding and supporting our operations, but the ED, not only emergency physicians, the ED is key. And you must have a plan, and this plan cannot be a piece of paper in the medical director's office waiting for the Joint Commission to come. This is a plan that everybody from housekeeper to chair must know, and know what their role will be the day it happens. It must be tested, required in every orientation in annual exams, that you make sure people up to date. And the database must be up to date. Your staff list must be up to date. Your phone numbers must be up to date. This is more important than fire control and infection control. It's key to know that mass casualty means when your resources are overwhelmed. But my resources are different than a single staff ED in the community. My own resources are different between midnight on a weekend and midday during a weekday. My resources are different. My occupancy is different. So you need to know what is your current capacity, your surge capacity, and you all know that in ED overcrowded settings, we must have the vision and the planning to know what to do. And this is not a departmental issue, this is a hospital-wide issue. How do you expand? In our own department, we range, our faculty numbers are anywhere between 2 and 4. Our residents are anywhere between 5 and 8. We have 6 to 10 nurses, depending on when. So if you give me 10 injured people, it's a piece of cake. If you give me 20 injured people, it's a piece of cake. It's not, it's a tight time, but we will handle it. We will be able to handle 20. We will be able to handle 25, 30. Give us more. So you need to assess it and assess what you have ongoing at the time to be able to be free in your mind to call for help and activate when you need to. So you just don't push a red button like the WHO says. Push the button. Push the button can work in a single staff ED in Africa, in Asia, in anywhere when we have a small community hospital where there is one doctor, 2 nurses at night, and there is suddenly a train station mass casualty incident, and you get a flux of patients. That can work there. In big tertiary care centers, the situation is different. So what we have devised in Lebanon is not to have just activation. We have mobilization and activation. It's a tiered response. Then even in our tiered response, you have a level 2 and a level 1. In the level 2, we call the on-call people. In the level 1, we call everybody. Everybody decision is 2,000-3,000 people coming into the hospital. It's not a piece of cake. You can't just push the button and say, all of you come. So, when you do this, you need information. And who's going to give you the information that there are more patients coming? That you are going to have a mass casualty incident. One time in 2006, I rushed to the emergency department because of an air raid on a building. There were 100 people injured. I had only 2 injuries. Because there were 30 hospitals around the place in Beirut. They went somewhere else. So should I activate every time I hear there is a blast 10 kilometers away? You have to assess that before you do. And who should make the decision? In our experience, for the level 2, which is the on-call people, it should be the ED attending on duty with and without the administrator on call in your ED, the head of department. It can be a simple phone call. We're facing this, we have information, we're going to get more. Activate level 2. And then you verify information, and you can speak to the hospital director, and they activate the whole hospital. So the level 2 can be activated by the ED doctor on duty. It doesn't have to be even the ED chair. They may not be available at the time. Okay, so how do you know that there are people coming? If you're gonna rely on the media, they're gonna get there 2 hours later or an hour later with their cameras. You can call your hospital director or police station, they don't know, they haven't even gotten there yet. The way you know are from the victims that first arrive, because the walk-in wounded will hop on a motorcycle in their car and arrive to your door or run to your emergency department. They are the first walk-in wounded arriving, them and the EMS personnel. That's how you figure out what's going on, what is it like over there, are there more victims coming? How many do I expect? So companions and the early victims are the ones who will tell you what to expect and whether you activate or go on alert, etc. They start arriving. And what we notice is there is always what we call an upside down triage. What does that mean? It's like a tsunami, Dr. Alwi. A tsunami, a small wave and a bigger wave. So the first wave are the walk-in wounded, and they come in the first hour, whatever you get, are going to be mainly walk-in wounded. There'll be some more serious ones, but by the second hour, 45 minutes to an hour, start expecting for no less than an hour, tens of patients who are going to be severely injured, who are red and yellows essentially. That's the critical patient. It will be in the second hour, starting 1 hour after a blast. And it's a good formula if you think about it. Think of how many patients you got in the first hour. We noticed with single blast injuries, double it. If you got 50, the next hour you're going to get 100, and the third hour you're going to get another 50. So a good estimation is 4 times what you get in the first hour, plus or minus 1 more fold. So 4 to 5 times you can estimate from a blast. Of course, if you have structural collapse, it's a different story, because then you have more dead people and delayed arrivals with crush injuries. But typically, people who are crushed, and the people who are not crushed are walking wounded. Make sure you know you have redundancy. Redundancy. Phone numbers, 4G, 5G, whatever, will not work. They will be shut down. Talkie-walkies aren't easy to have everywhere. So what we noticed is Wi-Fi, because of the the terrestrial communication systems that are redundant, they never fail. WhatsApp has been the most effective way, or Signal or others. Anything you rely on Wi-Fi will work. Just prepare for it and have the numbers and have accurate lists, which we in AUB update every 6 months. We communicate with everybody, update your information. So automatically we activated the alert at 6:07. That was less than 4 or 5 minutes after the blast. This means reinforcements, supply carts, medication carts, lockdown, and we go in disaster mode in our electronic records. Very important lessons to teach everybody. Do not please call the ED, do you need me? Please don't call your family members to check on them if they are working in the ED. You don't want to tax the time of people who are trying to empty their ED to receive patients. Pre-identify mobilization sites. The on-call people come to the ED. The non-on-call people go to the cafeteria, to the other building. You don't want to clutter your ED. You have to have another area where they go. And if they show up in your ED, I usually send them out to stand in front of the ED. They want to smoke there. Let them go stand there like a human barrier and get them out of your ED. So it's important to stick to what you've been trained to use. Lockdown means one entry, one exit. One entry, one exit. To control the crowds and to make sure everybody who's being discharged has had everything completed. That's important, because when you have patients coming in numbers, it's totally unreasonable what you are. The names will resemble each other. The faces will resemble each other. You will not recognize your own faculty and staff if they're coming through the main door. And what we learned in conflict zones is that the third pink door, back tunnel, is always necessary for staff to communicate or to hide or extricate victims that are going to be potentially targeted by other militias or adversaries within a conflict. So you need to always have a backdoor exit to funnel out and be able to escape, take away people who are at risk. Everybody should have their own department. Everybody of those, that list you see there, chief of staff, hospital director, should know their role. And you don't have a departmental only, emergency department, mass casualty plan. Every division, pharmacy, procurement, they all should have their own mini plan that they follow themselves. So they need, and that needs to be tested. Then you have these categories which NATO uses, right? Red, yellow, and green, and black. I'm not gonna discuss them in the interest of time, but when you get a patient like this, are you gonna be able to save them? Imagine this is being emptied in front of your ED by an ambulance with 1,000 people in front of the ED. You imagine what the crowd will do? So you instruct your staff, the EMS people, to go to the morgue directly from the back door and not come to the emergency department. Plus, in a conflict zone, when you see the mayor bringing his son with a bullet through his head, you don't tell him, he's dead, why are you bringing him? You bring him, you say, come on in, he's black, we're not gonna try. Don't do that, they'll kill you. Tell them, come this way, and run a soft code. In conflict, we're not NATO. We're not in the middle of a war and you can say he's dying, put him in palliative care. You have to tell them, come and simulate a small, till they recognize, simulate a small resuscitation to cool things off, otherwise you're at risk. If you don't want a gun in your head, save him. What I do, I don't say stop. I say, come this way. And who's in charge? Who's in charge? You know, they're like dogs, pack. They go, I'm in charge. He's in charge. They'll point to the gang master, militias, armies, you name them. They all act the same. He's in charge. Anybody related, come with me. You want to stop? There are 10 people pushing the stretcher. What do you say? I need blood. You don't need blood, but I need blood. What will happen? Take my blood. right? Where is the blood bank? In the 5th floor of the other building. You too, come with me. I've been invited to all the funerals. I really have become, instead of being the adversary with a gun in his head, I become what? Part of the team. You become part of the team, no injuries in the staff. Tag your staff. When people come from outside your department, they don't know your department. They don't know where the chest tubes are. They don't know. Your nurses are the section leaders regardless of rank. Your physicians are the section leaders regardless of rank. Kind of hard for the surgeons to remember this. But thank God, usually they all end up in the OR very quickly. And secure in order priority, you need to really what? Identify your incident commander, identify your clinical resource lead. And the clinical resource lead does not do resuscitation. In every zone, there should be a clinical resource lead. And that's important. They don't get their hands dirty, so they know what is going on and know who goes first to the OR. You also have to have a resource lead, perhaps better be a nurse, who will mobilize and request from the mobilization area outside the ED by communicating with the resource lead outside the ED in big hospitals. You communicate, I need 2 more nurses, I need an ENT, so they can send them to you from outside to the inside. That's how you decrowd your ED. Very important to also have a person at triage. That triage person does not need to be a physician. Why? You're really trying to figure out who's walking, who's not, who's unresponsive, who's not. So if they have, in order to walk, they have to have a blood pressure and they have to have a brain. So essentially, if they walk, they're green. Then you re-triage them. Step 1, step 2. Triage is done in every section to analyze who's red, who's yellow, who's green. And in the WHO, there is no such thing like a yellow at the beginning. It's either green or red. And then they do another assessment, and all yellows go to the floors. I thought I had 40 minutes.
Dr. Kazi, your time is up. Maybe you can round up.
That's okay, because
Thank you.
I will wrap it up. And remember the issue of human torpedoes. You don't do first aid at triage. You just label them, patient number 1, patient number 2. You don't even need names. So they come in, and when they come in, they usually come in like torpedoes. They open the ambulance. After the 1 hour, they come out, and there are people, militias, friends, families. They rush through. So a human barrier is a steel barrier behind it, and you're behind that with triage, not outside, otherwise you get injured. I've instructed my stretcher bearers to actually go and push in the other way. Even a better way to do this is to put all your stretchers outside and make them go on your stretchers so they have no more excuse to go inside your ED to get their stretchers back. And direct separate conflicts. How do you secure it? Zero tolerance for non-medical questions. Anybody who's talking politics, shut them down. Do not talk to media. Do not talk to media. You have no business, no time. Let the director do. And secure the perimeter. And in a military or militia zone, the way you do this is you go outside, look at the angriest person and say, who's in charge? When you identify the head of the gang, it's very simple. You say, I need you. Can you help me secure the perimeter? They will do that. What's the worst that can happen? They fight with another party, 2 more, 3 more wounded. It's okay when you have 500. So you can manage. Direct crowds away. Tell them there are patients somewhere else. Put the patient list on the other building so they keep going somewhere else. Divert them away. No media. Have a safety stock. Have clipboards backed up, because you cannot rely on the EHR, electronic records, because they will fail. Patients are moving all the time. The chart should stay, the clipboard with the patient. And if you can have somebody stay with the patient, I'm against the concept of WHO not to have companions. 1 companion per patient will improve security and give you an additional stretcher bearer and person to identify what the plan is and who the patient is. Anyway, thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity. Our objective is to augment capacity and be able to perform better.
Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Dr. Kazi, for that wonderful sharing. Our next speaker is added in as there's a change to the program, and he is Professor Salvatore Soma. He's going to talk to us about the management of chest pain in the emergency room. And Professor Salvatore is a renowned professor as well as a researcher in internal medicine, cardiology, and emergency medicine. Currently, he is professor of internal medicine at the La Sapienza University of Rome, and he's going to share with us today on a topic close to his heart, and this is on chest pain. And of course, you know that he's also an expert in biomarkers and longevity studies. Yeah, Prof. Salvatore, over to you.
Thank you, Professor Levitt. I think it's really a little bit strange for you now, after these two talks on disaster medicine, to listen about chest pain. But this is because I have to apologize. Thank you, Dr. Bazar Kander, that I have to leave tonight. So I anticipate my talk that's supposed to be tomorrow in the cardiovascular emergency. Anyway, I think that has been quite interesting for you now to think that in disaster medicine, people don't only die for trauma. There are a lot of patients that have some internal disease, such as acute kidney injury for rhabdomyolysis. And many patients complain for chest pain during a disaster, especially elderly people or acute heart failure. So this is something that probably is going to be included into disaster medicine, the management of patients that are not going to die because of a trauma that very nicely Dr. Alwi and Dr. Cassie showed. So let's move now to see what is really the reason why, what's going on? Okay, so chest pain is a situation where you can definitely have a patient presenting with a different clinical scenario in terms of having or not acute myocardial infarction. Okay, these are my disclosure. So I think that you are generally thinking about patients coming with chest pain that are around 8-12% in the emergency room, but during a disaster, in the 2-3 days after the catastrophic event, the incidence is around 25%. But you think that it is important to know that chest pain is not only acute coronary syndrome, since acute coronary syndrome in the worldwide registry is only around 15-20%. But out of acute coronary syndrome, there are many other important diseases, such as aortic aneurysm, myocarditis, acute heart failure, Takotsubo, so from heart disease. So it is always a kind of specific challenging for emergency physician to distinguish between the reason of chest pain. So I think chest pain is really important. In our Italian management, we put chest pain like an urgency, whatever is the clinical scenario, because people can definitely deteriorate in a few seconds. But there are also many other diseases out of the heart that can give you the opportunity to detect pneumothorax, pleuritis, other disease. So I think chest pain is a really important management out of disaster, but in everyday clinical practice in the emergency room. What is our job? I think our job is rule out. In disaster medicine, you do the job to rule out patients that are going to die, right? And I think rule out is our job, because rule out is going to be immediately understanding what the patient has not. Because patient does not come to us with a diagnosis in their head. So we need really to be fast and accurate in ruling out. And of course, after that, ruling in. Now, I think that it is really important to look at the guidelines that we published recently in European Society of Cardiology 2023. Before going forward, I have a question for you that I think everybody will participate. So let's just stop to watch your mobile, please, for a second, and answer my question, it's possible. How many of you are using, in the case of chest pain, high-sensitive troponin? Please raise your hand, patients that do high-sensitive troponin. Very good. Very good, everybody, fantastic. So it means that you are aligned with the guidelines. But next question is very bad. How many of you are still using CKMB in chest pain management? Anybody? Oh, good. you are doing a very good job, because guidelines are recommending to see clinical scenario EKG, but when EKG is not diagnostic like this, you are going to detect high sensitive troponin. What is important? EKG, right? In chest pain patients, always EKG, even in the case after disaster or even in the emergency room, the EKG should be done within 10 minutes. But I have a recommendation. How many of you are doing 16 leads EKG? Because out of the 12 leads, you should do right leads and posterior leads. Are you doing 16 leads? If you're not, please follow guidelines. 12 leads are not enough in case of chest pain. Moreover, what is important is that is really to try to think how you can, during a STEMI, immediately provide a PTCA. This is a paper we published in the Great Network recently. In 70% of the patients presenting with chest pain, during emergency room daily practice or even after disaster, 70% have EKG, not diagnosis. So it means 70% has no STEMI ST elevation. So EKG is crucial, but unfortunately is not adequate. And so this is the risk that you are going to missing a lot of diagnosis and send the patient. So that comes the story of high sensitive troponin that should be come to you in maximum 60 minutes. If the laboratory is not able to provide this, now we have a point of care system, high sensitive troponin, that you can do into the emergency room. Or, most important, what we do in Italy during disaster medicine, we do telemedicine. I think we should discuss at the end of this session the importance of telemedicine. We send the blood to result to point of care. If laboratory is not there, we can ask the laboratory to validate the high sensitive troponin level. So telemedicine is really important in this kind of situation. And I think it's important. Another question for you. Sorry, you have to stop again to watch your mobile. Now, how many of you are doing this algorithm 01 or 02? So means that if the first shot is not a diagnosis for troponin, you should do the second one in 1 hour maximum. So there is no need to take the patients more than 1 hour or maximum 2 hours, because it's so sensitive that you don't need to wait 3-6 hours. So do you agree that everybody is using algorithm 0, 1, or 2? Anybody is still using 03 or 06? Oh, please, don't do any more, because it's going to waste time and increases the cost. I will show you. Now, what is really important to recommend immediately to do ultrasound in the case of suspicion, either of acute coronary syndrome, which is aortic aneurysm, or pleuritis, or myocarditis. So echocardiogram is always important. And we are the key people in ultrasound using. Any kind of ultrasound comes to us, right? So it is also important that it is recommended to be really an understanding that this is going to be impacting for patient journey. So again, I would recommend don't take the patients more than 1 or 2 hours after 0, because you can rule out 30%. In our experience and the big cohort control in the Great Network, and now hope WOSEM will join us with many countries from Asia, we are going to make diagnosis rule out only 30% of patients. The other 30%, 35% are done in 1-2 hours, and a small amount of people you are going to make eventually next evaluation that is depending how much is the level. Now, everyone, as emergency physician in this room, exactly knows which assay laboratory using. Do you know if your laboratory is using Roche or Abbott or Ortho Clinical Diagnostics or Siemens? Do you know that? because it's important. The level of cutoff are totally different. So you should accept, for instance, if you are using troponin T from Roche, if the patient has below 5, you're done. If the chest pain is out within 3 hours before. But this is beautiful. The new assay from Kidel Ortho is below 1. What does it mean? That is very sensitive. What does it mean sensitive? Why I said troponin is sensitive? Because it is also measuring apoptotic cell death. Bubble, membrane is intact in myocyte. In the old troponin, we were needed to membrane be broken, and this will take 3-6 hours. Now, I said troponin, you have a little bit of a bubble. What is apoptosis? Programmed nuclear cell death, membrane intact. Can you imagine how specific is this biomarker? So it is important, if it is negative, 30% you send at home, if there is no chest pain anymore. If it is very elevated with totally different cutoff, depending to assay, you done, 0, go to the gut lab. There is a possibility that there are some, let's say, observational data. You need to know the delta. If there is a delta increase, for instance, using ortho or more than 4, is myocardial infarction. If it is a similar, rule out myocardial infarction. I think that is really important, again, for us to speed up our job in the emergency room. Negative predictive value. If it is negative, it's a true negative. ICEM troponin never lies. Never lies. Mirroring ongoing myocyte cell death. So negative predictive value is what we want. So this is a test for emergency physician, not for cardiologists. That is the room where we can do into biomarker field our job impacting the literature and the future of medicine. I think also important that we are not performing any more effort test. Makes no sense, especially in women, right? We do, in case of suspicion, coronary TC scan immediately. Are you doing coronary TC scan in the patients at risk, assuming a patient is diabetic, hypertensive, smoker, ICEM troponin is negative, you can do to the radiology, please do TC scan. Please don't do effort test anymore. It's going to save time, and effort test is many times false positive. I think it is really important that you repeat high-sensitive troponin because it's quantitative. What does it mean quantitative? The more it is, the more is the risk to patients to die. About the cost, when I was introducing 2015 ICEM troponin in my department, we sit down, myself, the cardiologist, and the laboratory, and I say, I promise to the CEO that I'm going to give you the possibility to save money. Because from now, 2015, I'm not going to order any more CKMB or myoglobin and use the money for, so you have to also be responsible for the cost. This paper we published with Singapore, with the Fatima group, we showed that if you are going to use ICEM troponin, you are reducing the time of decision, and this is going to reduce the cost. Any moment the patient stands in the emergency room, you charge the cost of the patient. So you should really want to set out as soon as possible the patients. Challenging. Hemolysis. Hemolysis is really challenging because in the emergency room we are fast and there is a lot of rotation. So in this paper we show that sometimes we can have a false positive troponin, especially T. ICEM troponin is not affected by hemolysis, troponin T is. But kidney, okay. Just another question, sorry if I interrupt your WhatsApp message on your phone. Now you have to agree with me. Do you think, how many in the audience thinks that kidney function is affecting troponin results? 1, 2, 3, 4, fantastic. Not true. This is the guidelines. You can use the algorithm regardless because troponin is not coming from the kidney. So please read this part of the guidelines. You can use algorithm because probably it will be a little bit elevated, but the second shot change is still there. So again, isentopony does not lie. You can really use isentopony in case of the kidney damage. In this paper we published with the group from Qatar, there is another situation in trauma. Brain trauma, you can use really high-sensitive troponin to detect the possibility of heart involvement, because the group from Altani and Mayar are working together with me and other people in the WOSM to show that in trauma, the presence of increased isentopony is going to link to high mortality, because there is a connection by the brain injury and the heart that is going to make people to die. So it is really important that you are going to have comprehensive evaluation by clinical judgment, EKG, isentopony, ultrasound, and in order to make a decision. Okay, I told you that isentopony never lies, right? But there are, out of acute coronary syndrome, many situations where you will have isentopony elevated. So are these false? Not at all, again, are not false. Are simply indicated you can have other acute disease such as heart failure, myocarditis, Takotsubo, aortic dissection. I got a terrible story of a young person coming in my emergency room that was 15 years ago, 23 years old, and was performing isentopony, was negative, was a little bit slight elevated, and we were looking for acute coronary syndrome. He got aortic dissection, and he died because we were always looking at acute coronary syndrome. So don't forget that in this case, it is not false positive. Isentopony gives you the opportunity to make other diagnosis of chest pain that is probably the topics that Dr. Basar Kander asked me to cover today. So I think it's interesting to be sure. And I think at the end of the day, what is a beauty? I told you the acute heart failure, right? I have 4 minutes, but I will just use 1 minute from now, because this is a paper I showed when I was working in New York. In acute heart failure, this is the kind of bioptic data I was able to detect by end-stage cardiomyopathy. Which are these black zone that you have not in normal myocardium? Is fibrosis, means myocyte cell death. So in acute heart failure, the enlargement of the heart is linked with the myocyte cell death, which is the biomarkers that is showing myocyte cell death, high-sensitive troponin. And in fact, I just would like to conclude with this final message, that in case of acute heart failure, isentopony should be elevated, is not false positive for acute coronary syndrome, is positive for severity. In this new paper in New England we published with Frank Peacock from Houston, we were able to show that people at acute heart failure, isentopony positive, no acute coronary syndrome, they are going to die. So I just would like to remark that chest pain is important. We are using a lot of chest pain telemedicine program, and I think in disaster medicine, telemedicine will be a way to solve many issues, both in traumatic patients, rhabdomyolysis, and chest pain that is still a problem worldwide. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Professor Salvatore. Our final speaker for this segment is going to join us virtually, and she's Dr. Ana Novia Serrano from Spain. She's the deputy of the Spanish Society for Emergency Medicine, and also the research lead for the International Federation of Emergency Medicine. Ana comes from the University Hospital of Moncloa in Spain, and she's going to share with us virtually on flight accidents. What are we supposed to expect? Over to you, Ana.
Pleasure for me to join this meeting with all of you. It's time to become better and try to save more lives. And thank you. I give my thanks to to the organization, just to invite me to join this meeting. Indeed, it's my pleasure, really. Well, I am Ana Navillo. I was born in New York City, and although I live in Spain, but just for some months. And I am an emergency physician and a critical care physician too. I belong to several different societies, and I am like the Society for International Studies is a very important one here in Spain and around the world. And I have experience with handling disasters. And today we are talking about a flight accident. It was quite. It was quite a challenge, yes, for all of us. I have no conflicts of interest at all, and this is a summary. We are first of all, we have to know what are we talking about, the story about these, what we know, and what we can improve. Yes. Well, these are these tests. This is what we are talking about. And I can tell you, I've been in two of them, and it's as a physician, and it's a very difficult time. And if you see the planes, you can just imagine how the crew and how the passengers will be. So what we know is that an event involving the operation of an aircraft from the time of boarding to the time of the engine stop. That's the space. That's the time. And all persons have left the aircraft. The crew and the passengers were fatally or seriously injured, and the aircraft substantial damage, or where the aircraft is missing or inaccessible. Remember Malaysia Airlines. So I'm going to point out several things. What about the law? The law is around us, and sovereign and aviation crash is usually unbelievable and a traumatizing experience, especially for those who suffer severe physical injuries or the loss of a loved one. Yeah. Whether you have been involved in a small airplane crash or a helicopter accident or a commercial airline crash, you may have a legal claim for your injuries and losses. You can. There are a lot of lawyers, and then in the U.S. You can find the National Trial Lawyers Association with the best guys for doing this job, and I'm sure that in other countries are the same. First steps. Well, we have to. The plane crash, and if you have involved in an airplane or helicopter crash, you must try to move away the plane or the rest of them. Why? Because the fuel spills, and after this we are gonna have another trouble with the fire. Yes. Try to account for others. You have been on the plane and call 911 or the emergency number of your country, as you assist any others injured if you can. What really matters here is just not to do worse, but to do better. So if you don't know how to handle an injury, it's better not to do anything, but to stay calm and wait for help instead of doing the worst, not only for you, but for others around. So try to make sure everyone maintains a safe distance from the downed aircraft, as I have said before about the flames, about the fires. If you have a phone, a cell phone or other camera, take photos, photographs and video of the crash site. If it is safe for you to do it, of course, and take pictures of your injuries too, because a good documentation, a good photographic documentation of the crash scenes often yields essential clues that help the National Transportation Safety Board, the Federal Aviation Administration, and of course your lawyer and other investigators determine what happened. What has happened. Well, these are keys that perhaps you had to ask to yourself, that observe many details about the airplane or helicopter crash. I'm talking about both. That first, did you hear any unusual or unexpected noises in the aircraft before the crash? What was the weather like? What actions did the pilot crew take? Don't discredit any detail because you think they may be irrelevant, because sometimes what we think is not, it could be not interesting. It would be very interesting for the investigators. So pieces of information that may seem insignificant may help your aviation accidents lawyer connect the dots and cast the light on potential contributing causes of the crash. The follow-up, usually the two federal agencies involved in investigating civil aviation crash are gonna stay in contact with you, and any information that you can provide to them, to these agencies, are better for not only for you but for all the passengers and crews, just to realize what had happened. This is a checklist for a survival. Rescue victims. Rescue victims, contacting families, providing support, providing briefings, providing personal effects, providing food, water, and medicine, providing financial support, providing language services. Nowadays, that we most of us are travel a bunch, providing travel coordination, providing family reunification, providing services to special needs population, as we have said before. So if you are on a plane during an emergency, you can advise an emergency landing if you think it's necessary. I mean, advice if you know what are you talking about. Okay, speak with the captain if you can about your options. If you don't know what are you talking about, it's better just to stay quiet and stay calm and sit down. Yes. So the emergency assistance start as soon as we have the enough information that has been obtained, and information requirements will vary depending on the existing situations. But a minimum information for in-flight emergency is in the event of an EL and an LFD signal, an aircraft identification and type, nature. This is something that they know quite well in all airlines. Please don't be surprised about these. These are the 14 keys that they're gonna take a look. Yes, you don't have to do it course, but they are gonna investigate everything about this. This is quite important. The frequency changes. These are the two emergency frequencies, and it means that if you are I'm a sailor. I mean, I know how to handle a boat, the yacht, and I can tell you that if you use these emergency frequencies, you are gonna have you have to explain to the police why you did it if you are not in an emergency situation. So. What is an emergency aircraft? An emergency is declared by the pilot, by the personnel, facility personnel, officials responsible for the operation of the aircraft, a system generated transmission for an aircraft. There is unexpected loss of radar contact and radio communications. Report that this last one that's what happened in 9/11. Well, was the first one that they lost the planes. Well, I'm going on. Reports indicate it has made a forced landing, or is about to do so. And the reports indicate the crew has abandoned the aircraft or is about to do so, and an emergency responder code is displayed or reported. So this is it. This is it. Well, I mean, to be in the water, and well, you can remember quite well the landing in Hudson River, and it was amazing how good everything goes. And this is a really tough situation because you feel cold after an accident, and if the temperature around is like this, it's not good. It's not good. Well, this is another emergency situation in a plane. It's a hijacking. Hijack attempts are actually events that are a matter of national security and require special handling. There are procedures and requirements for special operations and additional procedures. And when a pilot notifies ATC verbally of a hijacking situation, as in a code and everything started. This is an identification, squad 7500. When they listen to this, they know quite well that they have a hijacking situation, and they put their best to save the most life they can. Not only I'm talking about the passengers, I'm talking about the crew too. There's no reference. Sometimes there's no reference to the hijacking, and must be made in communications later. It means that they have to do a follow up of this situation. Assistance requested. When it encounters or is about to encounter weather conditions, there is a frequency change necessary, and the pilot knows the situation, so he knows what to do, and requires the code that you can see is 700. And they saw in the terminal, and they know quite well what to do. The radar assistance to VFR aircraft in weather difficulties are very peculiar. I mean, if the pilots sometimes the pilot is not qualified or not capable of conducting the flight. So ask the pilot to the co-pilot or the stewardess asking for someone to help some passenger. This has to do it very carefully without in a very calm way, because you can, as you can imagine, it could be a very hard time. A bomb threat is this is something that we don't know, even think about it, but we have to be ready for this. So when information is received about that the bomb has been placed yes, yes, sorry. Okay. Let's move on. They can place the bomb on, in, or near an aircraft for the purpose. The purpose is damage to make damage or destroying the aircraft. They handle it if the pilot knows that as a suspicious activity. That's the two words that they usually choose. And the aviation explosive expert is on call at all times. It's very important to know, and for our security, that any day, any time, any hour, that it doesn't matter. They're gonna be there to help us. And if the plane is not on the ground, is just has started the movement. So the pilot has to choose between climb or descent to an altitude. It depends on what he has thought about, and handle the aircraft as an emergency. Provide the most handle possible with respect to the safety of other aircraft. Can you imagine that he has decided what to do, and he hasn't seen that is near another one? So when the bomb threat involves an aircraft on the ground, and you are in contact with the suspect aircraft, you have to everything is ready to cope with this situation, and recommended to take off be delayed until everything is supposed to be in control. So what about explosive detonations? The K9 teams, well, they're amazing. I know them. And these teams, I mean, the police and the police officer and the dog they are amazing, really, and take actions and take a lot of risks, and they're ready for help you with this. Reporting death, illness, or other public health risk on board aircraft. There's a call sign, number of suspect causes of illness on board, nature of the illnesses, other public health risk, a number of persons on board, number of deaths, if applicable, pilots' intent, for instance, just to whatever that he has thought about, and any request for assistance, any specific medical services that they need. And we are about to finish. Don't worry. And what we can improve. This is very important. This is something that we have to answer to ourselves every day. Every day, what we can improve. We can improve safety technology, pilot training and procedures, and passenger safety awareness. Improve safety technology. Install
Anna, can you hear me? You are out of the time.
Table restraints and
Okay, could you,
data link,
sorry,
weather
could you
information.
stop the video? Thank you so much. Go ahead. Thank you.
Okay, so you've heard from all the 4 speakers. So does anyone have any questions you want to raise? I know we are short of time. Yes, please.
Could you have microphone?
Can you pass him the microphone?
Runner. Luckily you have runners.
Thank you for your presentation. I have a question to Professor Salvatore, because it's an important issue. We usually use the time of 0-1 protocol for high sensitive troponin, but I think there is a confusing situation about the range levels, because if the level is lower than 2, it's okay, but our range is between 8 to 18, and if the first result come 5, then 10, and then 15, it's always under the cutoff.
Yeah.
But it's not okay for me. So most of the time we have to make longer the time. What do you think about the range?
This is a great question. Definitely, there are 30% of the patients in this global survive that we found in that situation. So 70% of patients you've done between 0 and 1 hour, maximum 2. Then you have 30% of the patients where it does not reflect the delta change, right? For instance, if you are using Abbott and was the first shot was 20, that was in the middle range, and the second shot is 22, you have the chance to think a different disease. Don't send at home these patients. There are 2 options. If you think that it's not acute coronary syndrome, you should think aortic desiccation or something else. If you have a patients with high risk of a coronary syndrome, high cholesterol, diabetes, previous myocardial infarction, do coronary TC scan. Don't send it home. Ask radiology. Now we don't need to anymore to give beta blockers to do TC scan. And TC scan is the solution. So this is a small percentage of patients where the solution is TC scan for coronary evaluation. Not do effort test, okay? It's a small percentage of patients, it's not acute coronary syndrome, but you have a suspicion because of risk, do TC scan.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions?
Yeah, Alvin,
Yes.
no, from Malaysia.
Good morning, Prof. Salvatore. This question is for you as well. In Malaysia, we do use high sensitivity troponin for cardiac diseases, especially low-risk chest pain patients. We have a lot of patients, their only risk factor is smoking. Other than that, but they also come in with typical anginal pains. So you use high sensitivity troponin, but it is negative. And we know that in Malaysia, we are quite resource limited. But when the symptom is very typical, but the sense when we do repeated troponin and it's still negative, what are the risks of us discharging these patients without having a cardiac review in the next maybe 1 month or 2 months? Because, you know, clinics are very busy.
Good point. is almost similar to the previous question, right? So there are some patients that you are not confident and comfortable with troponin results. Please ask the radiology to set TC scan coronary. Don't 1 month, maximum the day after. You can send the patients at home asking to come. TC scan is the solution. Is the solution. So if you are thinking that isotroponin was negative, you think that is quite rare anyway. Anyway, should be possible. Please ask to make TC scan. It's fantastic. TC scan is a solution. No more coronary angiography. Cardiologists are losing money. I put my hands in their pocket because I took money from them. They like to do, I said, no, I'm doing TC scan. TC scan is really a solution.
Okay, I think in the interest of time, because we have overshot our time, we will end this session here. Thank you very much for those who attended, and you have your tea break outside. Thank you.
Thank you, Fatima.
Thank you.
Great job. Great job.
Those of you who are still here, can you scan the QR code on the screen and provide your feedback? Thank you.
during the trauma, we avoid the head tilt maneuver. Adjunct oropharyngeal, like naso and oropharyngeal, exactly we should to know about the contraindication of oropharyngeal and nasopharyngeal, because the maneuvers jaw thrust only, it's not support the ventilation, so that we use the oropharyngeal airway and nasopharyngeal, and contraindication of oropharyngeal airway when we have, as you know, any of the gag reflex is present in our patient. If we have gag reflex, we not make oropharyngeal airway, we are going to nasopharyngeal airway. And contraindication to insert of nasopharyngeal airway when we have facial trauma and signs of basal skull fracture clinically. After the adjunct, we can use also more advanced like King tube, like Lima procedures during our assessment. If we failed, we use tracheal intubation. Intubation, actually, when you have absent of gag reflex, we will prepare for intubation. Why? To protect the airway. During intubation, we will listen for our patient from the base to base, axilla, and in the gastric. And very important to look for end tidal of CO2. These pictures give how to measure the oropharyngeal, the size of oropharyngeal and nasopharyngeal airway from the corner of the mouth to the lobe of the ear. And also there is different size from the oropharyngeal and nasopharyngeal airway. When there is problem with intubation during anything we have, for example, we have anaphylaxis or we have swelling, we are moving to the next, our surgical airway. Our surgical airway started with as emergency needle cricothyroidotomy, as we see in our slide, but needle cricothyroidotomy, it's only for a few times, it's only for 30 minutes. We can give ventilation. After that, we should to know and to do surgical airway. Surgical airway, the maneuvers, I think it's mandatory to know in the emergency as an emergency physician. We will find the thyroid membrane, cricothyroid membrane, and between them, we insert our surgical cricothyroidotomy. Regarding breathing, as we know, we have life-threatening condition like tension pneumothorax and hemothorax. The cause, it is life-threatening condition. Gas, as you know, the pathophysiology enter the pleural space and he cannot escape. Pressure for the lungs and collapse. It will be reduce the venous return and make shifting of mediastinum so that it will be reduce the cardiac output. At the end, if we not survive the patient and make any emergency life-threatening, our patient will have cardiac arrest. We still use during tension pneumothorax, this is the angle, safe triangle. We use needle decompression in the 5th intercostal space. Now we change from the 2nd, we are going to the 5th intercostal space, mid or axillary line. Actually, nowadays, most of our colleagues, they use finger thoracotomy because really it is, when you insert the needle, maybe the direction, it will be loose in any direction and the size is not more enough, so that we use finger cricothyroidotomy at emergency, as we see in our slide. Some of our colleagues, they like to use this finger cricothyroidotomy to survive patient from tension pneumothorax to open pneumothorax. Traumatic pneumothorax, as we see in our slide, as it is, maybe it's not, there is no hypotensive, only one few slides when we examine the patient with tension pneumothorax. Our patient clinically, we will diagnose our patient. We will have decreased air entry by auscultation, absent breathing sound, deviation of the trachea to the right or to the injury, and also hyperresonance to percussion, so that diagnosis of tension pneumothorax, it will be clinically not by X-ray. But after decompression, it's good to do X-ray after compression of our needle decompression or finger cricothyrotomy. Traumatic pneumothorax, it is not tension. It is also the patient presented with decreased blood pressure. If we have sucking wound, need occlusive in a three-way as one-way valve, it's better not to do with gauze. And emergency, for example, at the scene, you can use any occlusive three ways to make our patient from life-threatening to survive. We inserted a chest drain. Chest drain, during our experience in the fifth intercostal space, need sedations. Actually, we use 10 millimeters of lidocaine 1% with dilutional 10 cc normal saline, because it is not good to make our patient shouting during inserted of chest tube. Complication, it is started with the bleeding from internal costal vessels, puncture organ lungs, and sometimes incorrect placement, and very important to avoid stitches in our patient when we make chest tube, because if you make stitches, some of our colleagues, he inserted stitches inside of the tube, and at that time it will be really leak for many times. Hemothorax, life-threatening condition, it's massive hemothorax when we have 1.5 of blood, or immediately, or 200 cc of blood hourly, or 1/3 of circulating blood from the kids. Our patient will make hypovolemia and hypoxia. Clinically, we differentiate. There is dumbness to percussion, but tension pneumothorax, it's hyperresonance, diagnosed by chest X-ray, but better by CT. Chest X-ray, as we see, we can find effusion if our patient is erect like this, and our patient at this moment need oxygen, blood, and chest drain, and we refer him to the thoracic surgeon if we have immediate drain of 1.5 of blood immediately, and as we mentioned before, 200 cc hourly. And also, you give blood, still hypotensive our patient, so that we referred him to the thoracotomy. Penetrating wound need immediate thoracocentesis. Always penetrating wound, it is not in the emergency, it's better to shift to the operating room. Regarding life-threatening condition of the ventilation, it's flail chest. Flail chest, it's fracture of more than ribs in 2 places. Clinically, our patient presented with pain, paradoxical movement. These patients need O2, need VBGs to rule out acidosis, to make maybe intubation if it's available. Chest X-ray, really, but better CT to diagnose. Need pain management, and also need ICU admission if have our multi-flail chest segments. Cardiac tamponade, it's life-threatening condition. As we know, clinically we diagnosed our cardiac tamponade by Beck's triad. Pathophysiological, as we know, there is problem with contractility of the heart, so that the neck veins is not complete, make a drain, so that it will be the vein distended, and also there is no blood, so that muffled heart sound, and because there is small amount of blood in the heart, it will be hypotensive. The emergency pericardiocentesis, it's very important to do during our assessment and diagnosis of our patient with cardiac tamponade. Pericardiocentesis, maybe many of you make as usually. Maybe you will go directly with guidelines of fast scan, or as a traditional method, we started from the gastric, and our patient, it is temporary pericardiocentesis. Our patient need resuscitative thoracotomy later on. Rib fracture, if we have isolated rib fracture, we give only painkiller for our patient, but it's life-threatening when we have multiple rib fracture and there is chest wall injury score, as we see. If it's dependent at the age, at the ribs, chronic lungs disease, and we at the end measure all of the score. If it's more than 10, require admission. Of more than 20, need ICU, and more than 30, consider referral to the regional major trauma center. Actually, when we have why flail chest, rule out flail chest and pneumothorax, and also when we have multiple rib fracture, we will exclude if there is first and second ribs, because it will be having major great vessels injury. Diagnosis, chest X-ray sensitive only 50%, so that better CT to use. And also if there is fracture ribs in the 10 or 12, we will looking for the liver or spleen, and if there is any injury in the abdomen. If need ventilation, we will do for our patient. Sternal fracture, it's happened from direct trauma. It's not easy to fracture the sternum, maybe serious injury. Chest X-ray, as we see, we diagnose, we make lateral view. Our patient with sternal fracture, as we see in the slide, CT's slide, he need admission for the ICU, and we need ECG to do for our patient, and echo. Manage, we admit our patient, we give painkiller, and we make ECG because rule out myocardial contusion for our patient. Pulmonary contusion also, it could be life-threatening condition in the breathing and ventilation. Pulmonary contusion, it's happened as we see in the X-ray when we have high energy trauma with the flail chest and hypoxia. Our patient presented with hypoxia, and we are avoid the complication like ARDS. By chest X-ray, we find there is a patch. It's a patch. Lung need oxygen. VBGs need intubation if necessary. Also, aspiration, it's inhalation of vomit or blood, or during the drowning area. History, it's very important. Chest X-ray by aspiration, we will find there is opacification, O2 mask, and our management started with ABCD. We give O2 mask, ABCD, and need bronchoscopy. Actually, by CT, we will find ground glass opacity for our patient with pulmonary contusion. Aortic injury could be life-threatening condition also. It's happened with blunt trauma. Patient, as we see in the X-ray, there is wide mediastinum, deviation trachea to the right also, and maybe we will find fracture 1 and 2nd ribs. If we insert an angio tube, as we see, it will be go to the left and diagnosed with CT scan. These patients with aortic injury need resuscitative as soon as possible with blood. Patient may be presented with chest pain, back pain, hypotension, And as we mentioned, we diagnose by X-ray or by CT. I think, need for our patient with aortic injury need TVAR immediately, and we send him to our colleagues from the thoracic surgeon. Esophageal rupture also, it will be life-threatening condition. It's full thickness tear, as we know, in the esophageal wall. As we have most common, it's Behr syndrome. Behr syndrome, it will be spontaneous vomiting. Our patient presented with chest pain or subcutaneous emphysema, as we see in the slide. And when we deal with our patient, we make MPO and we give IV fluids and also need ventilations. Tracheobrachial injury, we started with A, B, C, D, need surgical repair. It's rare, but it's life-threatening condition, injury involving the trachea and also or main bronchi, often due to blunt or penetrating trauma. Patient presented with respiratory distress, subcutaneous emphysema, persistent air leak when we insert of a tube also, and also diagnosis by chest X-ray. As we see here, maybe you will find pneumothorax or subcutaneous emphysema. Rupture diaphragm, also it could be life-threatening condition in ventilation and breathing. It's happened when there is a tear in the diaphragm, usually due to trauma, blunt trauma, allowing abdominal organs to herniate with the thoracic cavity. As we mentioned, blunt trauma, penetrating trauma, and also clinically our patient presented with respiratory distress, abdominal pain, diagnosis by chest X-ray, as we see in this slide, elevated hemodiaphragm, and we found bowel in the chest. This is very important sign when we inserted of nasogastric tube in the chest. It is the clue diagnosis. Mostly left is more common than the right, and also many of our surgical repair need thoracotomy or laparotomy.
Dr. Ahmed, I'm sorry, we have 2 minutes.
1 minute?
Yeah, the time is over. We have 2 minutes.
We have 2 minutes, yes. The last slide, really, we will talk about traumatic cardiac arrest in emergency. Traumatic cardiac arrest, it's not like our ACLS course. Here, we don't make at all compression. Our patient with traumatic cardiac arrest, if we have a witness cardiac arrest, traumatic cardiac arrest, it's not than 5 to 10 minutes. It's the protocol as we see in the slide. Our patient, we make immediately thoracotomy bilateral. We give fluids, warm fluids. We also support the airway. If we have ROSC, we will send our patient to the ICU. At the end of my talking, I would like to appreciate your listening. Thank you very much, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Ahmed, for this nice presentation. It's a very big and long topic. Just first of all, we discussed with Dr. Dimitris. You will be go out in on time. The last time is 12 to 20. So we will let you to go out on time. Don't worry, be relaxed. We have time for more questions. Then, do we have a question for this lecture, this topic? Any comments? Okay. One simple, short comments, Dr. Ahmed. Just, you know, the last edition, that is 11, has just announced 1 month ago. One most important change was X in PHTLS. We know we were starting from XAL ABCD. Now in ATLS it is the same. We have to start with X. You know, X is the hexagonation. hemorrhage that could that cause and it's a life-threatening conditions. So this is one of the important changes in last edition. As it was mentioned yesterday by Dr. Hassan, he's here, Hassan Tani. The most important cause of death during the trauma is hemorrhage. It is the most important cause of first 24 hours, over 15%. So this is why we have to pay attention to stop the bleeding. If there is bleeding, we have to stop it, external or internal, doesn't matter. This is why we have to start 4X. And so as a result, for the trauma primary survey, we have to treat the first that cause death the most. This is the simple summation of primary survey of the trauma management. Thank you very much once again, Dr. Ahmed. Once again, I have to, do you have any question, please? No? So, next one. Please.
Okay, so, trauma case. Okay, so trauma cases are stressful enough as they are. Having a patient who's not cooperating makes things a lot worse. So I'm calling on Dr. Abdullah Mahmed from Abdulaziz Medical City in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia to tell us how we can get out of this trouble. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate your presence and your attendance. As you know, my topic is regarding the agitation. Agitation, I found it's a very long topic, but I'm just concentrate on the just traumatic patient. So my objective, just starting with the simple definition of the agitation and types of agitations, and then we'll go to our the main statement or the main my presentation, which is the how to deal with the agitated trauma patient in ED. I'm gonna present some different case scenario and taking home message for every case, and then after that we end up by the summary. So as you know, the agitated trauma patient is a common presentation in emergency department. Managing acutely agitated patient can cause anxiety in even the most expert emergency physician. The most of the time, the agitated patient with the trauma present a challenge in the emergency department. And as you know, the agitated patients are highly risk patient in addition, high risk also for the ED staff. We have to know this, and it's very important, and I hope to also teaching your resident is agitation is a cardinal sign, is a cardinal presentation. It is not a diagnosis. And that's why you need to look for and search for the etiology, the causes of the agitation. And there is a different causes of agitation, as you know, but the most, what we're gonna talk to, just the trauma. There's a different causes, medical, psychiatric, toxicological causes, and others. So the definition of agitation simply is an excessive motor or verbal activity. There is a different presentation of the agitation. Could be present with just hyperactivity features. The patient will be uncooperative, irritable, or even just physical destructiveness. They classify it as a mild, moderate, severe. And regarding non-traumatic agitation, they usually respond for verbal de-escalation, talking to the patient in a smoothing way, just to be him calm down, or you can activate the code white if you protocol allowed in your hospital. If there is no response, you can give him some medications, and also you can use physical restraints. And as you know, it's very important to know that the physical restraint is not recommended for agitated trauma patient because it's very high risk for them, especially for aspiration. Okay, so coming for the core of our presentation, which is the, I'm going to present some case scenario for agitated trauma patient. So the first case is a 35-year-old man who was brought to emergency department by EMS. The patient was struck by a car while crossing the street. Then the emergency physician was called to evaluate the patient. The patient appears agitated, anxious, and moving all his limbs. They found some vomitus on his cloth and some minimal bleed from his oral cavity. The patient agitated and cooperative. Vital signs, as you see, he's bradycardic, he's hypertensive, tachypneic, glucose was normal. There was difficulty to insert IV line due to his movement. And so my question is now, why was the patient agitated? And what's the differential diagnosis, and how can you manage such patient in ED? While the patient in the resuscitation room, the patient was moved to a monitored bed, oxygen applied for him, 2 IV lines were inserted. The patient was examined again, and they found a large hematoma in the right parietal area of his skull. So now, the brain imaging, as you know, is definitely indicated for this patient, but it is difficult to get this kind of imaging while the patient is moving and he is agitated. And that's what, in addition to the patient was or decreasing the consciousness, and that's why it was decided to be intubated. So the patient was intubated and he was assessed again. EFAST was negative. And again, why was the patient agitated? So the patient could be having severe head injury, intracerebral bleed, secondary to epidural, subdural, subarachnoid hemorrhage, or even bad contusion. Due to the mechanism of action of the injury, could the patient is having severe hypovolemia, or maybe the patient was intoxicated. Okay, so the patient, after stabilization, was sent for pan-CT, which shows here a large epidural hematoma at the right side, compressing the right ventricle, and midline shift as well. So the patient ended by taken to the OR for emergent surgical evacuation of the epidural hematoma. So now, coming to the conclusion, the TBI is a worldwide leading cause of mortality and disability. The agitation of our patient was due to traumatic brain injury. And why? The cause is the TBI can cause vascular, hemorrhagic, inflammatory, and cytotoxic injuries that affecting the mood regulation of such patient. Again, head injuries disrupt normal brain function, affecting areas responsible for mood regulation and impulse control. And we have to know one of the early complications of head injury is agitation that induce behavioral problem and restlessness. Therefore, agitation causes potential harm to patients and interferes with the treatments. Okay, coming for the case number 2, again with agitated trauma patient. He's a 45-year-old male was brought to emergency department by emergency medical service following a motor vehicle accident. The patient was the driver. Upon arrival, the patient was agitated, shouting. He was complaining of abdominal pain and leg pain. He was shifted to a monitored bed and IV lines was inserted. So this is his vital signs. As you see, he's tachycardic, he's hypotensive, tachypneic as well, oxygen sat within normal. With the quick examination, were normal. A part of the EFAS showed large fluids in the hepatorenal and splenorenal pouch. As our protocol, trauma team was activated. And then patient is still agitated. The patient was tubed due to hemodynamic instability and possible to go to the OR. So the chest X-ray pelvis were normal, and there was a kind of non-split fracture of tib fib fractures for the patient. The patient also received 2 units of packed RBC due to his hypotension. After a while, blood pressure started to decrease. The heart rate was started to decrease, blood pressure improving, and then the trauma team decided to send the patient for pan-CT. So pan-CT showed this is his abdomen, which shows shattered, ruptured spleen with the hemoperitoneum as well, as you see as well, the extravasation around the spleen. So again, the patient was taken to the OR for emergent laparotomy. Okay, now, our conclusion is it is known that trauma is the most common cause for hemorrhagic shock. Hemorrhagic shock is a hypovolemic shock due to the blood loss. And for this patient, agitation was secondary mainly for the blood loss or hemorrhagic shock. So take-home message, agitation again can be consequence of severe hypoperfusion and subsequent brain malperfusion. Severe hypovolemia can cause agitation due to volume depletion and acidosis. And the early use of steroids, blood products resuscitation, and early search for the cause and etiology result in better outcomes. Okay, now coming for the third case. Again, a 25-year-old male who presented to ED with a severe shoulder pain. Patient reported sustaining the injury while playing football when he fell. Following the fall, he was unable to move his left shoulder, and he was complaining of severe pain. The patient was so agitated, and he was asking for pain control. Okay, so on arrival, emergency physician again evaluated the patient who shouting, as we mentioned, secondary for the pain. IV line was inserted. And again, I have to ask myself, why was the patient agitated? As you know, the pain is a common cause of agitation in emergency department patients. Pain management is the key in this situation. And as you know, leaving patient without analgesic is not good. It's not it is inhuman. So you have to control the pain for such patient. Okay, so the patient received analgesics. The patient was examined by the EM physician. They found kind of the left shoulder has poor range of motion, and the other examination were normal. And this is his X-ray, which showed the anterior shoulder dislocation of the left shoulder. And then patient was given some medications. So now, regarding the pain control, which analgesics can be given to control agitation due to trauma? There is a different option. You can start with the opioids like fentanyl, morphine. You can give non-steroidal. Even you can give propofol or ketamine. So our patient, he received ketofol, both combination of ketamine and propofol. And then the shoulder was reduced. And this is a post-reduction X-ray. Okay, so now, pain is a common cause of agitation in emergency department. Please be cautious when you give analgesia for agitated patient, especially with increasing age. It is a high risk factor for airway complications. And please, when you have to control the pain, be careful and not to harm the patient. And as we mentioned, there are different options of analgesics to be given for a agitated trauma patient. The last case is a 50-year-old man who was brought to emergency department by the emergency medical service following a motor vehicle accident. The MVA involved 2 vehicles with significant damage observed at the scene. In the emergency department, the patient was agitated, complaining of shortness of breath and severe localized chest pain. Patient was moved to a monitored bed. His vitals, as you see, he's a tachycardic, he's a tachypneic, significant tachypneic, and oxygen sat were decreased. Oxygen sat was 80% in room air. So oxygen supply was applied for the patient, and two large IV lines were inserted. The oxygen saturation started to improve, and the patient is still agitated due to shortness of breath and severe localized right side chest pain. When the patient was examined, the air entry was intact, but there was a decrease in the right side of the air entry on the of the lung. So no obvious bleed, but again the patient was shouting and agitated due to the local chest pain. Again, to control the pain itself, the fentanyl was given. FAST was negative, and X-ray, chest and pelvis were ordered, and they found in his chest X-ray these abnormalities. I don't know if it is clear, but you see, if you can just focus on the right side of the apex of the right lung, there is no pulmonary vessels, hyperurgency. As you see, you notice there is a large pneumothorax at the right side with multiple fractures. And in addition to some subcutaneous emphysema, if you focus just on the right side of his neck. Okay, yeah, this is more, I think, clearing. This is a pleura, the down, and there is a hyperurgency at the apex, and absence of the pulmonary vessels showing the typical presentation, radiological findings of pneumothorax. Okay, so the patient receives anesthesia due to the pain. Under aseptic technique, chest tube was inserted, oxygen saturation, hopefully it was improved, and then the patient was sent to CT scan looking for other injuries. Now, taking home message, hypoxia is one of the causes of agitation in a trauma patient. Restlessness and agitation can be early sign of hypoxia. Hypoxia must be treated immediately to prevent serious complications. And prolonged and severe hypoxia can result in hypotension, and we need to correct the hypoxia as soon as possible, giving oxygen, inserting chest tube, or even intubation. So in summary, agitation is a very common and often complex clinical challenge to ED staff. It is important to identify underlying cause of agitation, then appropriate treatment can be initiated. And as we mentioned before, significant hypovolemia, hypoxia, head injury, and severe pain are potential causes of agitation in trauma patients. And finally, please remember that agitation is a cardinal presentation. It's a cardinal sign. It is not a diagnosis. It is not a diagnosis. We need to look for and search for the cause and etiology of why the patient in ED is agitated, especially with secondary to trauma. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. This was a most comprehensive presentation. I loved your take-home message. I think it's extremely important to know that this is a symptom, not a diagnosis. So, if I may ask a question before you leave the podium, please. Sure. Huh? Yeah. And also the first speaker, if you would like to be there, because we have to ask you a couple of questions. So, here you present us with 4 cases, which we were lucky enough to clearly diagnose the underlying cause and resolve it. Now, this is a luxury. What is your protocol if you don't have a clear diagnosis of the etiology? What is your preferred method of chemical restraint for these patients?
Yeah, absolutely, actually. We'll go actually like ABCD. ABCD, you're gonna discover a lot of things. Just go systematic and go with A and make sure the airway is intact. And I'm talking about the trauma patient. Make sure the airway is intact, breathing is good air entry, make sure there is no bleeding, correcting if there is any hypotension, giving fluids, giving blood, and if the patient is hypoxic, correct the hypoxia, and goes just ABCD. And in addition to the adjunct methods or ways like imagings, another diagnostic test, most of the time, you're gonna reach for the diagnosis. And what actually I teach my residents that in emergency department as an emergency physician, you are not the only physician in the ward. So you need help. If you don't know, if you lack of kind of knowledge or you are confused or something like that, please ask for help. Your colleague, your other specialty, and this is all, this goes with the helping of the patient.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ahmed.
Please, of course. We're taking all the time here.
Microphone. Macro. Ahmed, sorry, Dr. Ahmed, can you also come to here, please?
Yes, you could come over here and speak through this mic. Please.
Come to close.
Yes.
Come here.
Thank you very much for your great presentation, Dr. Abdullah. I would like questions for this session. As you know, the agitation is an hyperactive condition and seen in emergency department patients. And we are defining these patients as agitated patients. But are you using any other medical term for the hyperactive patients? I mean that these agitations or hyperactive disorders may be due to behavioral or the emotional disturbance. And are you using any medical other term for the, like an agitated patients or the emotional or behavioral disturbance? In hypoactive patients, we are using commonly Glasgow Common Scales. But this is then hyperagitation and hyperactive conditions. Are you using any other medical term other than the agitations?
Thank you for the question, actually. Agitation is it's a broad terminology. It's covering most of the definitions. It will cover restlessness, it will cover irritability, and that's why we use these terms specifically, the agitation. And as you said, actually, the agitation is excessive motor and verbal movement, and this is explained how can we define the agitation itself.
Question, please.
I have two questions. My name is Wasim Zakaria. I'm from Syria. In case of lung chest trauma with cardiac arrest, in the absence of cardiothorax surgeon, it is acceptable, according to the current trauma protocol, for the trained emergency physician to perform thoracotomy for direct cardiac massage.
Thank you, doctor. Really, this question, you should to follow the policies in your hospital. Maybe some of hospital not allowed to do thoracotomy, but this is the international approach with thoracotomy at emergency, so that here is no compression, there is no CPR. We only put thoracotomy or finger thoracotomy bilaterally. After that, we give fluids we give warm fluids, oxygen. If the patient is ROSC,